Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? We know it's been crazy times, but we thank you all for showing up here and choosing to spend your afternoon with us. And I promise you, it's gonna be worth coming. It is said by Franklin Roosevelt that we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. In order to celebrate the International Youth Day today, I welcome you all. I will hand it over to Maddie for the acknowledgement of the country. Thank you.
Hello. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm on. My video is not unable to. The host has to allow me in. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this event today. Before we begin, my name is Maddie Connors. I'm a Yorta Yorta, Djadjarang and Gamilaroi woman, originally from Shepparton, now residing in Melbourne. So I was born on Yorta Yorta country, that is my grandmother's country, and now living on Wurundjeri country. So for me, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of this land. I want to pay my respects to the Kulin nations, but not only that, I want to pay respects to all of the lands and traditional owners of the lands on which you're standing on today. Because we're in a virtual world, it's very different to if we were in person. So definitely wanted to pay respects to the traditional owners of the land you are meeting on. I also want to pay respects to the traditional owners, as I said, of this land and the custodians of this country, and I recognise their connections to land, wind, water and community. And I understand, and you all understand, that our sovereignty wasn't ceded. We are standing on Aboriginal land and always was, always will be. But thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Maddie, for the beautiful acknowledgement of the country. And now I have to introduce you to this beautiful event. And today is a very special day. Today is August 12th. And August 12th is declared by the United Nations as the International Day of the Youth. Youth and their voices shape the modern society. It shapes the future. And that is why it is essential to give youth the opportunity to raise their voices to platforms where these voices are heard in the first place. And that is why we have this event. This event is about you, it's about me, it's about our voices, and it's about taking those voices to a platform where we can increase representation and talk about things that are relevant and important and affect us. And especially in the light of these COVID times, it's important to talk about these things. And therefore, we are here to discuss about everything around COVID-19 and how it is impacting young, multicultural, and Aboriginal people. And therefore, I welcome you to this event. And now let us get into this panel discussion.
All right, so before we start, I'll do a quick Zoom keeping. So all attendees are going to be muted by the administrator during the panel discussions. The questions and answer will be available through the Q&A tab in the chat for audience in participating during the meeting. Please indicate Q for question and C for commentary at the beginning of your text for us to get a bit of a reference. Please note that this event is going to be recorded, and let us know if you have any queries regarding that. So now, please allow me to introduce our beautiful and brilliant panelists. So, firstly, we have Mr. Mujtaba Aliza, the president of Asylum Seeker and Refugee Student Association of Victoria University. We have Mr. Nairo Y, who is the member of VU Cultural Diversity Student Network. Zehra Arsalan, who is the vice president at Latrobe International Students Association. We have Shashwat Tripathi, who is from the Center for Multicultural Youth Shoutout speaker. We have Miss Maddie Connors. She is an artist and founder of Yali Creative, with whom you just had a quick chat. Then, last but not least, we have Miss Tulsika Rova, who is the VU Women's Officer. I cannot wait you all to join us in this amazing panel discussion. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Keishi.
I might take over from Vishwa. Thank you so much. Can you guys see me yet? Gonna take that as a yes. Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm Keishi. It's lovely to meet you all. And thank you so much to Vishwa, Shashwat, and Maddie for those fantastic introductions. As Maddie said so beautifully and eloquently, we are coming to you from so many different places, and that's so exciting. You know, while COVID does present a lot of challenges, which we'll cover today, the exciting thing is we actually have the opportunity to get together on an online platform and really hash out some of these issues. But before I begin, I'd really like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm on in the beautiful central Victorian town of Bendigo, which is the Dja Dja Wurrung and Taungurung peoples. So as mentioned, my name is Keishi Tulak Ramesh, and I'm very fortunate to serve as the Multicultural Youth Commissioner of Victoria. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had an absolute ball getting to know the panelists. I'm so excited for you to meet them, and I'm really sad that we only have so much time to hear them speak, because honestly, I could listen to some of them speak for so long. There's so much knowledge that is in this online room at the moment. It's actually crazy. But before we get into all of the fun stuff, I thought that I would explain a bit more online housekeeping from what Vishwa touched on. So you'll see two functions that we have. We have the Q&A function at the bottom, which is like second from the left-ish. And then we have the chat function, which is next to that. So for Q&A, if you would like to share your thoughts or ask a question, please use this Q&A function here. You can use this at any time throughout the discussion, and we'll have a team that's monitoring that feed, and they'll do their best to ensure that, you know, we answer the questions at the end, as many as we can, but please understand that we might not get through all of them, as it really depends on the amount of questions that are asked. And then we also have the chat function, which is next to it. So if you're having any technical difficulties or questions about the format of the event, or, you know, queries that aren't questions for the panel, please use this chat function here, and a member of our team will be able to assist you. And we'd like to keep this chat function, if possible, for support rather than questions. And then you can use Q&A as well. So the way that we're going to run this is we're going to have us as a panel addressing maybe 3 key questions that I've posed to the panel beforehand. And then after that, we'll have a bit of a musical sort of act and some poetry. And then we'll come back in for a Q&A, which will involve some of your questions as well. So, all right, let's get into it. So my first question to the panel is about what we're seeing on the ground in our communities around COVID. At the VMC, we're seeing a wide range of impacts, from rises in racism to impacts on financial and emotional stability, and issues concerning international students. So this sort of leads me to my first question to the panel, which is, what ramifications and concerns are you seeing in your communities in relation to COVID? And I might start with Nada, if you could please share your thoughts.
Thank you, Casey. I think there's a lot of problem when you're having this COVID-19. We didn't expect that, and there's so many news coming across. So I would like to say, like, one or few that's really that remind me in this in last few months. So I think it's the early stage when the pandemic starting. There's an announcement from Scott Morrison. I think most of the international student and foreigner will never forget it. Is Scott Morrison tell us it's time to going home. So that really make me thinking how Australian thinking us as an international student from overseas, how they see us as a student, and what kind of value they want from us. And not late after, I think it's a tough time to continue the living. That's why I'm thinking, like, there's a news about some international student, they're working like only $7 per hour, which is actually common, but that problem bringing up because the COVID-19. So I really want to address that, or mention this in have these opportunities to mention this to other people, to to focus on, like, as an international student, what we're thinking. Thank you.
I think that's really interesting, and it's so topical. We really need to to be mindful about the impacts of our language, and especially when with big platforms such as politics. I think it's quite concerning, as well as worrying about the health of our international students, and those attitudes is definitely important. So to add on to that, Tulsika, I might ask if you can see any concerns that are happening in your communities in relation to COVID.
Thank you, Keishi. So as a young person in this postmodern world, there's always this expectation towards like excel in everything that we do. And we obviously plan how things are going to be. And as an international student myself, I've planned that I'm going to do my 3-year degree and then continue with my career. But obviously, nothing prepared me for the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I would like to say that many students have actually lost their jobs or have had their working hours reduced, and they're really struggling financially and emotionally as well. So students are at the most vulnerable point in life. And this can really have like a negative impact on the mental health. So whilst the services of some counselors have been readily made available, it's particularly difficult for international students to approach these services because of certain insecurities. So I personally have been brought up in a country when you're kind of seen as weak if you kind of portray your emotions. So I would say that there's a societal like expectation to kind of like be strong and deal with it. So I think that's one of the things that during this COVID-19 situation, many international students haven't been able to really like explore the emotions and really go out there and seek for help. So I'd say that it's really difficult. So, and also with employment, I'd like to say that many students have been meaning to get like placements or even a job after this, but we don't know how the post-COVID world will be. It's really difficult, and it is really like frustrating. And some students might use this time to kind of like develop their skills, work on themselves. But we find that there are actually many other students that are kind of like using this time to really try to find a job because they're really pressurized to kind of like pay their bills and things like that. So I would say that there are so many different aspects and so many different problems that have risen with this COVID-19 situation. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with what you're saying. I think there's quite a dangerous narrative that sort of outlines this productivity sort of push, where I think a lot of people are in a position to be productive, as you say, but we also do need to have regard to, people who are going through some really tough times, which, as you said so perfectly, we never planned for this. We never planned for this pandemic. So how are we really helping people respond to it? Zara, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yep, thank you, everyone. Well, with my team, with the International Students Association at La Trobe, we found that being engaged with the students and the people in our community was the biggest challenge so far. Compared to the lockdown in semester 1, when there was so much uncertainty, this time around, most of us had an idea of what to expect. In semester 1, when we had to slowly postpone all our events, before we realized that we would not be able to deliver any of them, we actually had a trip booked and planned just before our university stopped all the classes. And instead of postponing the date further, we had to cancel the trip and refund all the tickets. I think that's when my team realized that we would have to replan each program to make it suitable for an online platform, which was a huge challenge that we didn't expect because we plan everything before the semester actually starts. There was a long period of time when we all tried to settle into our new routines and then come back together, evaluate how we could deliver our services again. This semester, we started planning early on and created achievable goals for hosting events where we could collaborate with other organizations as well. And now, having spent a few months at home, instead of focusing on delivering the programs, I think we should act upon getting in touch with each volunteer that we had a connection with and hear about how they're doing and perhaps create a safe space for communication. Then we can look into welcoming new international students, which we haven't had a connection with during the second semester.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And it's such a practical solution and suggestion for a way forward that definitely has a lot of merit. Maddie, would you like to add anything about your communities that you represent?
Sure, sorry. I couldn't work out how to unmute myself. As predicted, COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on our communities, and it's affecting various parts of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's lives. For Aboriginal people and community members, not only is there a lack of connection with our families, communities, mobs, which have a lasting impact on one's mental health, there's also been some shame and fear around getting tested for COVID-19 if there are symptoms present, because historically, Aboriginal people are less likely to go to the doctors or to a hospital. So that is one reason why, they're impacted. But Aboriginal people living in Victoria are likely to be disproportionately impacted by social, economic, cultural and health implications of COVID-19. The vulnerability of the community is directly linked to the Black Lives Matter movement. It comes from historic and ongoing colonisation and successive racist and discriminatory policies, which again links to why Aboriginal people won't go to hospital or, have some level of fear of hospitals. I know my nan is scared of hospitals and she often won't go. And same with other family members. So I can see how those two link. And the culmination of this means some people in the Aboriginal community are being disproportionately impacted. So as we can see with a lot of our communities and the panelists that we have here today, not only is it a social and cultural issue, but it's more broadly, a societal issue too. So there are so many layers and it's very multifaceted. Connecting it back to history is always going to have some sort of level of trauma associated with it as well. And as I said, that connection between hospitals and Aboriginal people has always been there. That trauma sits there, and it's very challenging.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, as much as this panel is going to be very informative, we're only going to scratch the surface of so many of these issues, which need so much more detailed attention and really some digging to find out how we can help. And as you said so well, it's really structural, it's societal, it's this multifaceted combination of all these different layers that are contributing to these issues. So thanks, Maddie. Shashwat, would you like to add anything?
Thanks, Keishi. I would like to add a personal anecdote I would like to share with you. When I left my home in India and when I decided to move to Australia, I decided that I'm going to build a new home. I bought all my stuff, settled in the new house, and this is my home now, right? Of course, I understand that I'm not a citizen and that there's only going to be a limited set of opportunities that I would be able to access, and I acknowledge that part. But now let me share a personal anecdote. 2 days ago, I had a itchy nose. Sometimes, don't you get like a stuffy nose? This happens, right? And I thought, oh my God, this is the end. I got COVID. Now I'm going to die. Oh my God. And then I had a panic attack and I was crying and I was all over the place. But what I was actually scared of, not that I would get COVID. I mean, I know that the chances of recovery is high and things might be fine. But what I was actually scared was who is going to take care of me while I was recovering, because I have no one here. Who is going to take care of my expenses? Who will be there to make warm soup for me? I saw this Instagram video and this girl was talking about how her mom was making warm soup for her while she was recovering. And that made me so insecure. And I realized I'm in such a vulnerable position. I have no resources, no access to protection. And while there's a big crisis outside my home, there's a big crisis inside my home as well. And international students are often lured by universities. This #1 university of Australia, or this University of Australia, please come make this our home. And we do. We come with all our hearts and all our emotions to these institutions. But then, at the end of the day, when crisis happens, we're asked to go back to our country if we can. It's not easy. There are no flights. There's a high chance to contact COVID during these flights. Borders are closed. How am I supposed to fly back? My mom calls me every day and asks me, are you healthy? And are you doing okay? And she's so insecure about my health. She says, I don't care about all the expenses done. We will do our best to send you financial support. It's okay. But what would happen? What would you do if you actually get COVID? And that is my point. Policies that we make in this country, it should be for everyone. For example, in Canada, the government of Canada provided financial resources, and not just a one-time payment, but a regular payment like a JobKeeper payment to international students, because they understand that we, at this point of time, I contribute to the Australian economy. I participate in the Australian process. I consider Australia as a part of my identity, at least for 3 years. And therefore, I should be protected. And this is important to understand, that we have a crisis in the home and crisis out the home. And how do we navigate between them? Thank you.
Yeah, I think so valid. And I love that you shared an anecdote. You're always so passionate and animated about these issues, and I absolutely love it. I think, yeah, there's so many things to consider, not only, these systemic issues and the policy issues, but as you said, who's going to make me soup? Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to do these things? Which is, like, even if you do have people, it's quite a scary thought to think about, of what's going to happen to me if anything happens to me, and where am I going to go for support, and who am I going to rely on? I think it's incredibly topical. I might finish off this question by getting Mujtaba to share his thoughts.
Hello, everyone. Once again, happy Youth International Day. As you are all aware, we are living in a crucial time and in a crucial stage of our life. But I hope everyone is keeping well, safe, and sound next to their loved ones. Well, as you know, most of today's Australian people have immigrated from overseas in the past 2 to 3 decades, and each of them brought different skills into this country to build this country. And today's asylum seekers and refugees are the same. They immigrated from different countries, and came to this country, sought asylum in this country, and they have that potential and that skill to build this community. But unfortunately, they don't often get that opportunity to apply their skills. So these people have immigrated into this country for a better life, for to be safe, to be secure. They call this country home, and they often don't have equal rights as other residents, unfortunately, and don't get the advantage as others. So they usually don't get the jobs at their skill level, and they are the first one to let go. So they don't have their rights recognized. They have lots of gaps in their employment, even financially, while the government came in and provided financial support to many other people, to many other groups of people, but the people from asylum seekers were left out, unfortunately. So we understand that the current situation is a broad issue to everybody, but asylum seekers and refugees are constantly at the back of the line, and are always left at the back of the line, unfortunately. The government don't understand the assets that this group of people bring into this community. Everybody is facing trauma, that's right, and are affected by COVID-19. But this community face even further, suffer even further, because of this pandemic crisis in the country. So most of these people have been highly affected by COVID-19, while most of them lost their jobs, their income, due to COVID-19. They also have been left out from government support. But other people and groups are able to access full range of government support available to people facing economic hardship. However, asylum seekers living in the community on bridging visas or temporary protection visas, they are just waiting process of their claim. And those who have been granted temporary protection visas, they are not eligible for income, like, government's income support, such as, job keepers and job seekers. So, the current trauma or challenge, the current trauma and challenges might affect everybody and all the communities for a long period of time, as we, for the post-COVID-19. But those who are, especially those people who are studying and are, within university, they are mostly vulnerable and they are mostly at risk. However, we would experience financial crisis, in the future, like across the whole world. But due to, this crisis impact, most of these people might, lose their jobs and income, for their entire, for the, once the COVID-19 is finished. I think it's a hard situation, but hopefully, I hope it gets well and, fix up everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Mujtaba. It's very topical, and the question of, how do we prioritize support and how do we make sure that everyone gets some sort of support, everyone's, quite covered by government, is very difficult, and it's something that definitely needs to be reconsidered, as we see multicultural communities often left scrambling at the end. So I think, this is a very, very topical conversation at the moment. And with that in mind, we've heard quite a few issues from our panelists. We've covered stuff including international students. We've looked at things including systemic issues, policy issues. So I might turn our views to rather more than concerns about aspirations. And please note that the Q&A is open. So this is meant to give you just a pure taste of what some of the panelists have to say. So if a panelist has said something that you really want to hone in on, feel free to put something in the Q&A chat and we'll address it in the next session. So the next question that I'm going to ask to the panel is, as much as COVID presents many challenges for us, are there any opportunities or aspirations that you see going forward in a post-COVID world? So I might start off with Tulsika, if you could give us your thoughts on that.
Thank you so much, Keishi. So I'd say with the post-COVID world, it might be an opportunity for people to know that they can actually work from home. So like way before, when you think people might be thinking, oh, are we able to work from home? And especially like people with disabilities. But I think now you'll have like more opportunity and more flexibility, to undertake certain work. And knowing that now we've been allowed to do so, I think it's really gonna change the world like after COVID. And I would also like to say that COVID has also taught us a lot of things. It has taught us that who are really the essential workers. So usually we might think, okay, the CEOs might be the essential workers, but no, you can't actually really work without nurses and doctors and supermarket workers. So this really has taught us a few of those things. And another thing that I really like to touch on would be family bonds. So I feel like personally for me, COVID has actually strengthened my family bonds because before COVID, I would just like focus on work and then just put off talking to my parents only during the weekend. But now I kind of like valued family a lot, like knowing that what it's like to have a family or not have a family. And to know that sometimes it's okay to kind of like set a deadline on your work and then just focus on your family instead. And I think the pandemic has also taught me to take care of myself and not really focus on work, focus on other things. And the priority is myself. So, and it has also taught me that there's so many different kinds of people, who are actually coping with this pandemic. So some people might cope with this easily, building some skills, working on their resumes, but others might find it very difficult to really cope with it. And that's something I kind of like talked about this before, but I think with this pandemic, it also has taught us that sometimes it's okay to use this time to grow, but it's also okay to feel emotional and to really try to work on keeping yourself healthy and really like emotionally healthy. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Tulsika, I completely agree. I think that it's been interesting seeing everyone switch over to flexible work conditions, and I think a lot of jobs that were traditionally unable to be done from home are now somehow able to be done from home. So it's a watch this space to see how employment's going to be impacted. And 110% what you said of, I think some people are in a situation where they can use this for self-improvement, but we do need to hold a candle for the people who aren't and who are going through a particularly tough time with COVID. Nato, would you like to add to that and give us your thoughts?
Thank you, Casey, and thank you, too. And I really agree on we have the opportunity to work from home. And it's also in terms of working and studying, it really makes it easier for accessibility for people who cannot travel that far. And personally, I think that really, in that terms, save me some time and money on just going to campus every day. That's really a positive thing. But never said that is, I still prefer to go to campus in a regular base to meet my friends and teachers. But anyway, for this COVID-19, I think after that, in international students' perspective, I think it is opportunities to us to think about we should get more familiar with the Australian policy, the law, and the rights we can gain. Because at the beginning, there's many students come to ask me on, hey Nado, do you know how I can get help? Do you know what kind of like visa condition we're going to change? But even that, I have no idea. We need to do a lot of research on bills, on documents, on what we're going to deal with that. And because myself, like I heard a lot of story from my friends and friends, no matter on their working condition as well. And I think this COVID-19 bring up that issues. Like what I mentioned before, there's a student who working only $7 per hour. And the problem is she's the victim, but at the same time it's like she's scared to tell people she's been humiliated or she's being treated unfair because she know that in visa conditions she cannot not paying tax or cash in hands. But from my experience, when I come to Australia, we all desperate to getting a job. We want to get experience. We want to earn our living. And I'm sure like there's always some employers who take that advantage. And it's really important for us to know what kind of right we have to protect ourselves. Because I'm sure like in this situation under the pandemic, everyone can be a victim, but we're not necessary to act as a victim. We can equip ourselves and protect ourselves if we understand what kind of right we have. And also in terms of politics, I think we're from different country and we have different political culture and different values. And it's important to understand the same law may be meaning differently in your country than in Australia. That's really important to understand that. So I think after the COVID, for the current students, they need to learn more about the law, the regulation and policy. And for the future students who come, who are planning to come to Australia, it is also important to them to understand what they're going to facing before they actually arrive to Australia.
Thank you, Nato. I think all very relevant. Shashwat, would you like to make comment on this question as well?
I think what COVID has taught us beyond these challenges is this amazing thing called adaptability. I think no matter how many challenges we had, at the end of the day, we were still pushed in some way or the other to do our work. And I think if you think from an optimistic perspective, I think that is amazing. I think that made us a lot stronger. I always used to think that my home, for example, is not the most comfortable place to work from. I used to work in libraries and I used to prefer these external spaces, but it was a big challenge for me to adjust in my physical space, because it's a small room, a typical uni accommodation. I don't enjoy that much, but at the end of the day, I got myself accustomed to that process, and I started to adapt to that. And with every new, for example, with the second wave of the lockdown, with the second wave of the COVID, there were a new set of challenges. So this whole year has been so dynamic that we have to constantly shift and shape our personalities, and our working styles and everything. And I think that has made us very, very agile, very adaptable. And I think that's a great skill set that I think we all are going to take forward after COVID. And I think one important thing is that we all have kind of realized the value of being online. I think being online gives this amazing thing called accessibility. People from all parts of the world, people from all different places who might not be able to commute, they all have accessibility to these resources. We have online internships now. We have online these seminars, right? We all get to learn and gather knowledge and produce ideas from any part of the world. So I think adaptability and accessibility, I think these two amazing things we're going to take forward after COVID.
Thank you, Shashwat, and an amazingly positive perspective on what we can bring forward. And I think, those factors to put on a resume, such as adaptability and resilience, are unmatched in a lot of circumstances. And I think the funny part is, with international students and with multicultural people and migrants, like, we're some of the most resilient people you'll meet, because people, much like Shashwat, have literally picked up their lives, put them here, and have managed to thrive. And if that doesn't say resilience and adaptability, I'm really not sure what does. So I think, yeah, it's definitely an incredible point to make. And I might invite Maddie to make comment on this point as well, of, what sort of aspirations and opportunities do you see going forward?
Yeah, so just touching on what Shashwat said as well, I really find that, that positive energy you've created in that, what you've just said so beautifully. I feel like similar in a sense. I'm going to reflect on myself for a moment with flexibility as well. So, I've become a lot more flexible in the home, and also I've recreated our home to be somewhere we wanted to be. So in the first lockdown, we went out and bought a lot of houseplants. So it's, we've got our own mini jungle to make it feel really, the energy is really positive. But, I've seen a huge increase in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses online, and it's so deadly to see, especially on Instagram. I've witnessed entrepreneurs and trailblazers leading the way, providing workshops, one-on-one services and webinars online in the comfort of your own home. Like, what better is that? You can wear your pajamas on the bottom and, corporate on the top. But, this is especially great when you have young children, as I do. I've got a 8-month-old and a 4-year-old. So having the webinars accessible online has been amazing, because it allows me to still be with my baby if I need to be, but I can learn things and be online when it best suits. And having also Zoom meetings and with people so that I can still have my baby with me. I'm still able to go to these meetings as my business evolves. I'm able to have those meetings online. So that's a really positive thing as well. I launched my business website and really amplified that in the first lockdown. So that was something that, I was, focusing my energy on, because otherwise I would have just found myself twiddling my thumbs or watching too many Netflix series or, going a bit crazy at home. So yeah, I really put all of my energy into creating my website, which was really, really fun. And it's, I went from having 100 followers on my Instagram to 10,000 now. So it's been pretty insane during this whole, I guess you call it lockdown, but, the restrictions and stuff. But, I've been seeing other amazing accounts sharing Victorian Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander businesses such as Naramili on Instagram, which have been a great support as well. But back to what someone was saying at the beginning of this, is it's taught me to put myself out there, to be creative with my 4-year-old, to, try and find fun things for him to do that aren't just, you need to think outside of the box. So the other day we ordered cookies from a small Instagram business that came with a paintbrush that he could paint the cookies. So it was a cow and a horse. So this lady just thought of this business, and so we ordered these cookies, and my son absolutely loved painting the cookies. So again, thinking outside of the box is, another thing. And it's allowed my partner to be home and finish work early, to spend more time with us and less time traveling to work, because it took an hour in and an hour back. So all those things are really positive. And I think that moving forward, we need to adapt these in our lives and keep them there, because it's connected. I guess families more, the first lockdown when we went for walks, I saw families walking all the time, which was beautiful, because before that, parents worked in the city or, that sort of thing. So I think, yeah, that's really amazing.
Yeah, incredible. And I don't know about you guys, but I want to go to Maddie's house if there's house plants and paint your own cookies. I think that's a great love to be a part of it. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I've found that now that I'm working from home, I've made my living area a nicer place to be, when you'd think that you would do that anyway. But no, I'm definitely on your train, Maddie. I've decked out my home office with a snacks tray as well. I think that's very important and crucial to me being able to do my work that I need to do. So yeah, I think that it's really exciting. I'm hearing about flexible working conditions. I'm hearing about, extra time spent with family, going on walks a lot more, all that sort of stuff I think is fantastic. And, in a post-COVID world, it's going to be very interesting, because as the outdated and outplayed phrase by all politicians, this is an unprecedented time. So, the opportunities that lie past this are really going to be quite interesting to observe. So we've had some really interesting perspectives from a lot of our talented and young leaders. And my last formal question to the panel before concluding this sort of formal component is going to be about the existing challenges for youth. We've heard about a lot of stuff that's popped up because of COVID, but now I'm sort of interested in hearing what the impact of COVID has been on issues that already exist. As young multicultural people, I'm sure that we've seen and faced a number of social challenges. Do you think that any of these social challenges have got an added layer of complexity in light of COVID? And Zara, I might call on you first to comment on that.
Thanks, Keishi. And I definitely agree. I have my own snack corner near my study area, so it's accessible whenever I need to, get into something for long hours of time. Going back to the question, I think in this, period in isolation, this proved to us that the importance of opportunities that we have to socialize with others and enjoying each other's company is very, very important. As much as we try to at the moment, it's quite difficult to connect with new people on an online platform. For example, a student being in a class or a different group for the first time, and there isn't any opportunity apart from breakout rooms for them to meet other people. Small things like, surfing on Eventbrite, Facebook events, and, ticking I'm going, and actually being there is going to have a newly defined meaning for everyone after this. So this time being at home with a lot of people being in, similar situations with socializing, getting through to them is a simple task with a text message or a call, a FaceTime, or even a Zoom session. And little surprises to cheer them up is going to be maybe the highlight of their day, of their week, and staying in touch with people that you may think they're struggling, or what kind of living standards they're in. That's going to be important as well. And it's also good to remember that some days you yourself you're not going to feel up to it. You're not going to feel like you want to contact people or get on social media, and that's completely okay. We have to take care of ourselves first, and then go to the people around us.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And I think the analogy that I always come back to is you can't pour from an empty cup. So you need to make sure that you have all of your needs met, and make sure that you're really taking care of yourself before you go to take care of someone else. I might throw to Nardo to discuss any social challenges that you've seen that have maybe gotten a little bit more complex now that COVID has passed.
In terms of my personal social method, I think this COVID-19 hit me really hard, because I need to not just cancel most of my face-to-face arrangement, But at the same time, it's like, personally, I don't really like using remote learning because even everyone can say something, but most time it's quite restrict on just small chatting on Zoom. Like in the class, you're just listening most of the time, and you can't even using the chat to message your friends. So it's kind of not that fun compared to the past. Like you can just chit chat in the back and just discussing on some question that you are scared to ask your teachers. So that's really hard when that's something I don't know, but you won't speak out loud because you're not sure is that a stupid question. Maybe not. They usually encourage you to doing so, but on a Zoom class, I think students is really not keen to asking questions straightforward compared to in a class. In a classroom, they just like shouting out, and the teacher can't even find who is talking. But in a Zoom, is like who's saying something, repeat again. So I think that can be stressful for somebody. At least it's stressful for me in a Zoom class. And having said that, I think in terms of the larger society, I think the COVID, it is really confusing because we have so many things is changing and the policy changing like almost every day. I'm actually overwhelmed by the news. I spend so much time on the news. Like I probably spend 3 or 4 hours per day. So I don't think it's healthy. It's not good for mental health. But the thing is like you're living in the overseas, so you need to catch up the news in Australia at the same time you catch up news back in home, and maybe some international news that everyone will mention that. So I think that's really challenge in terms of that keep your mind keep focused on the news, then you kind of forgetting how to manage your own schedules.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly difficult. Like, as you say, in terms of social challenges, like even just social development in classrooms, because, I think we all miss a bit of classroom banter when you're in the room with someone. It's a bit different. I don't know if I would have passed uni the same way that I did if I didn't have, my friends next to me that I can ask questions of readily without asking the teacher. And I think the funny thing with Zoom meetings and online learning at the moment is, I don't know about you guys, but I get this anxiety when I go to ask a question that someone's going to ask a question at the same time. So I'll wait and like meticulously time when I'm going to speak, and then you still end up speaking at the same time someone else does. So I think there's definitely a social challenge around online learning, and what other complexities are added to that by COVID, which is this adaptation to a new online sort of platform. Tursika, would you like to add anything about a complexity that you see about a social issue?
Thank you, Keishi. I would like to say that the pandemic has unfortunately given rise to many cases of racism. So there are many concerns such as depression and suicide have also been amplified. It's important to address these issues to support young people of today. And I'd like to say that help them, and even referrals can save a life during this pandemic. But touching more on racial discrimination. So racial discrimination, obviously it used to be sort of invisible, but it's kind of becoming more visible and scary in some cases. I think we've all seen the news. We've all seen there are so many news articles kind of blaming international students for the COVID-19, kind of reporting that people are blaming them actually. And what was actually really shocking to me was, just like Nado said previously, that it's time to go back home statement from Scott Morrison. So I feel that this has also kind of awakened a sort of hatred towards most international students. So many international students have been reporting feeling these cases like even during Zoom classes, and simple things such as even a statement saying, or like, why don't you go back? And things like that can really hurt someone. And this can really have a negative impact on their studies and on their whole life. And you don't know what people are going through at this time. especially international students, are away from the parents, from their families. So these cases really amplify hatred, and like it's unfortunate that people are suffering financially during this period of uncertainty, but they're also feeling unwelcomed in a country that actually prides itself in being multicultural. So I would say that has really been amplified, and I think it's becoming a bit more visible than just invisible in the past. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that the Multicultural Commission has definitely seen is this unfortunate rise of racism around these issues, and you know, how communities can band against each other in a really sad way when we're in these challenging times. So thank you for that reflection, Tulsika. I might throw to Mujtaba to see if he has anything to say on this issue.
As we are all aware, obviously, actually last 2 weeks ago, I've read something online that, you know, what will happen after, you know, once COVID-19 finishes. It was surprising, you know, it's kind of, it's something that put me in shock. Yeah, obviously it's going to, you know, not only financially, that it's going to affect the people and the government all across the world. Not only that, but also it's going to, you know, affect everyone, you know, by getting more like, you know, psychologist issues, and you know, like getting trauma and distress, like the numbers are increasing. But the thing is that you know, these are the common issues that we are going to face, unfortunately. And also apart from that, you know, the people who especially, you know, the people who have been disadvantaged, like, you know, asylum seekers and refugees, and also my friends that, you know, mentioned about the international students, I know that, you know, they'll face even further hardship and, you know, even further trauma because of you know, these challenges. Well, I hope, you know, this you know, this situation, this pandemic crisis ends up soon, and hopefully we get back to normal, and yeah, everything go well.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for that. And as much as I told you guys I could listen to these guys forever, but this is going to be, I think, the cutoff for us, because I think that's all we have time for today in our more formal sort of structured session. So I'd like to thank all of the panelists for providing their perspectives, and the audience for your questions. That Q&A is going to stay open for a bit. So please put your questions in there if there's anything you'd like to hear from, and we'll be back soon. But I'd like to invite Vishwa to come back and provide some reflections and introduce our next act. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your wonderful thoughts. You guys are truly amazingly brilliant. I would like to end this with a bit of a thought by Nelson Mandela. He said, "The youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow," and we can truly see that this afternoon.
Colour. I still remember the first day of kindergarten. Mum had dropped me off early to school that day. I had a cream sandwich crushed under the sweat of my palms, angry at the world that I were to be separated from my mother for the very first time in my life. Little did I know separation was yet to occur. You see, children aren't born hating religion, aren't born hating color, aren't born hating the reflection in the mirror. You see, the only philosophy I ever learned in school was those surrounded by the ethics of gratitude, kindness, and respect. See, we only had fights over Barbie dolls and who gets to play Dr. Roll. See, I never really understood what the word race had meant, until I was told by my teacher to only mix colors with white, for blackness would create a mess. Maybe we were too innocent or oblivious to the messages infiltrated within our minds, and our minds had subconsciously built a hierarchy on something called stereotypes, yet you still couldn't feed the racism to me. It never occurred to me that I had to be a certain race to gain privilege in this world, as though my mind were to be sculpted into the norms of society. Tell me what is more ethical than a well-mannered individual? Why is it that William can leave that law firm with a job offer in his hands and Khan with nothing? Why is it that a boy from the States had been arrested for showing his teacher a clock that he'd built? What did she fear, and what do you fear? What feeds your soul with rubbish when you're not snacking on a packet of chips or that leftover butter chicken from the night before? What is it that eats your soul, leaving you desperate for freedom? Do not tell me it has nothing to do with racism. Why is it that Asian communities fear leaving their homes due to the violence on the streets with people yelling, bat sickos and Chinese disease? Have you seen Trump's response on that? Why is it that children whose families and ancestors have worked their bodies like machineries come to this country only to be told to go back to where they came from, if only that had meant St. Albans? As though our economy is more important than the well-being of you and I. So tell me, is this the world you want to bring your children into? Because if it is, just remember to tell them that race is nothing more than just a color.
I think that was a wonderful performance, and I just could visualize everything as the poem was unfolding. I could feel every emotion that she was trying to convey. And I think that was one of the most beautiful spoken word pieces I've ever seen. But now let us move to a Q&A session, and Keishi would facilitate that beautiful Q&A session. So Keishi, I will hand over that to you, please.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to see some of the questions in the Q&A, and please keep in mind that we only have about 20 minutes for the Q&A. So anything that isn't answered right now, we'll follow up with you guys, or we'll try and address it at some other point. So I think the first question that we should kick off with is one by Tracy Ahern, which is, do you think that new jobs and industries will be created post-COVID? And if anyone wants to jump in and answer that, feel free.
I'd first just like to say that I definitely do agree that there are going to be new jobs that will be created. And we've seen that during the COVID, like when there were when restrictions were being applied, there are so many new positions, like for example, someone who was like sanitizing places, and they're like you kind of get like more things to do during the pandemic. But I think like after, there's a possibility that many companies will stick to being online. And then this will actually give them more flexibility to hire more people and hire like different sort of things. And I also think that there will be support that will be needed, more support into how to kind of like transition from being like online to offline, because obviously I think we've kind of taken like a comfort to staying online so much. So yeah, but my answer will be like, yes, I definitely think that there will be new jobs that will be created.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what sort of fields are going to pop up. And that's something that the VMC is currently looking into in our youth-led project, is looking at, what sort of industries are going to be popping up and what sort of advice that we can give job seekers and international students in future. Is there anyone else that wants to jump in on that question and maybe provide comment about any industries that might come forward?
I found it really interesting what you said at the end about us leaving our houses again. Particularly after we've been working from home for so long, I think that that's a really good point for us not to skip. I think that we do need to be aware that it's going to be harder to go back to our new normal, which is either going back to work or working from home. So I think very interesting point you just said, because even when we had the first opening in Melbourne, when we first opened back up and we could go out and stuff, I was getting overwhelmed with social interactions, and I'm an extrovert. So when we went back out into society, I found that really challenging, exhausting as well. So you come home and you're like, oh, I'm actually really tired from, being engaging and being on. So I found that like a really good point to make with the whole new world situation. But I think a lot of positions will be coming up online, definitely. Even virtual admins. I've seen like a lot of virtual admin stuff, which has been interesting. So very interesting times that we're all living in at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. And I think, it's going to be such a watch this space for future. And it's really inspiring, Maddie, to hear about your business and even just the simple stat that you gave about your Insta followers. Awesome. What was it, like 100 to 10,000?
Yeah, so I've got 10,000 now, and I started the first ISO. I started with 100, so all my engagement has been on social media. So people are engaging, more than ever and more than I've ever seen. So yeah, really jumped, but it was crazy.
Yeah, I think that's great. And the interesting thing is that I feel like youth have grown up with social media, and we're in this age of that's so second nature to us, like Facebook and Insta, and it's called social marketing. But that's a skill that we all have inherently because that's how we operate. But it's a skill that's actually quite sought after and something definitely to keep in mind in listing skills on your resume and for job hunting and the like. I think the next question that I might throw to you makes me a little sad, and I'm hoping that the answer is opposite to the way the question comes across, which is from an anonymous attendee. After COVID, do you see Australia as a country that welcomes international students and multiculturalism? That's one part of it. And the second part, which is from another question, is do you think international students won't choose Australia as their first destination anymore? And I think, Shashwat, you'd be perfectly placed to comment on this. What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Keishi, for these questions. I think I would love to cover that. But before that, I have to acknowledge Zulia Gurdag's name. I forgot to mention that last time, and I'm really sorry if I butchered the pronunciation of the name, Zulia. I can understand because people butcher my name all the time. So my sincere apologies, but she's a year 12 student, guys. And look at the words she wrote. I think more powerful than many literature pieces I've ever seen. And she's a youth who is making a way in these super hard COVID times, like everyone else. So shout out to the name, and thank you for sharing that poetry with us. And now I would jump into the questions as Keishi and the anonymous attendees post. Wish I could see your name here. But after COVID, do you still see Australia as a country that welcomes international multiculturalism? I would, as someone who studies political economy a lot, I would say yes, because from a very utilitarian perspective, that is, what's the profit? Yes. Australian education sector needs international students for research and funding. International students, we all know, pay 4 times, and then domestic students. And I think they would definitely look forward to welcome more international students. Multiculturalism, I think, is a very, very interesting topic because it depends on how we define multiculturalism. What usually now we're defining multiculturalism is, different cultures existing together. That's it. But I think what we need to look into is multiculturalism actually means when different cultures interact and participate in the process as well. They can't just be silent attendees, silent members of the society. If Australia would look forward to multiculturalism that encourages and promotes communities to come together. And I think that is the only way forward. If we do not bring in communities together, if we do not march forward together as a part of the Australian society, I don't think so we would succeed. But that is the answer to that question. And the second other question I will quickly cover, do you think international students won't choose Australia as the first destination anymore? I would speak from Tulsika's point, which she talked about. If we don't bridge the gap between international students and domestic students, we would stop coming. Very honest answer. If Australia doesn't safeguard international students' rights and their basic rights as human beings to uphold their dignity and to give them a good standard of life, international students would stop coming to Australia. But I think the Australian people, I believe in the Australian people. I think I've met beautiful, amazing Australian people, and I definitely believe in the Australian society. I think Australia is, there was a survey and in that survey, most of the people said that they were very proud of Australia being a multicultural society. And I think I'm very, very, very hopeful and optimistic of Australian people's attitudes towards international students, because they love these different cultures coming together and bringing their ideas. So I think international students will choose, but if we do not provide them with the basic standard of living, they would stop coming. It's a very simple logic. But thank you.
Such a simple and thought-provoking answer. I think that's definitely it. Like it seems common sense almost that, we need to support people to actually come here and live. And with the way that, fee structures work with universities and the way that, a lot of our support systems are configured, I think we really need to try harder to support a lot of international students to come in. Is there anyone else who would like to talk on that point?
Yeah, I have the same point of view with Swiswat, and especially when you mention multiculturalism, it needs to be community going into each other. It's not just my culture is not just like that. It's also to understand the other culture and get to know each other rather than just one dominate the country. And when I'm seeing that after the COVID, do we see Australia as a country? For this, I'm sure like Australians still welcome us internationally and then multiculturalism, because like they still the in terms of economic. That's why I'm asking is like how Australians seeing us as international students. Because after this COVID-19, they still need to support their economic, and I'm sure like even in the future they will have more demand than ever. And for the second question about, do you think international students won't choose Australia as the destination? It is more like the question asking to myself is like why I come to Australia in the first place for me. And I'm sure that even after this COVID-19, I will still pick Australia as the destination to study. So for this question, I would rather like let people to just asking yourself, why do you want to go overseas and study? So I think that's the most important thing that people should consider it.
Yeah, definitely. So important. And I think, that sort of leads into the next question. And I'm taking a general theme from some of the questions that have been presented, which is about support for international students and advice that the panel has for where you can go to for support. And I think I might ask Mujtaba to touch on this as well as Maddie, because I think Maddie, you put some support links in a document previously about where we can go for Indigenous support. And I think that's quite important too. So I might start off with Maddie and then throw to Mujtaba afterwards.
Yeah, no problem. So I was discussing the last question, wasn't I? Sorry. Wearing masks, getting tested, social distancing all make a huge difference in our fight against COVID-19. These are simple things we can all do to help keep ourselves, friends and family safe. But don't forget to stay connected. It's really important we reach into our supports where we can right now. And if there's any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people or students here today listening, and you want to chat to Mob anonymously, I'd encourage you to call Yarning Safe and Strong. They're a great organisation to, anonymously call someone and have a chat about what you're going through at the moment. And I'm sure that there is other call lines at the moment available for a number of different people across different groups and minority groups. And I'm sure there's a number of these organisations that are supporting youth, but also supporting parents and everyone at the moment, because it is such a challenging time. But also with my company that I created, Yali Creative, I've teamed up with JIRA to pay it forward on masks, on the masks that I'm creating. And I'm looking for those who are in position to do so, to consider buying a mask for JIRA when they buy themselves one. And JIRA provides practical support to all Aboriginal women, and particularly Aboriginal women who are currently experiencing family violence or have in the past. And by purchasing a donation of the mask, you are supporting a COVID-19 response that is Aboriginal-led and culturally responsive. This organisation connects with Aboriginal community members across the state of Victoria and are best placed to know where these extra masks are needed. So you can jump onto VATCHO's Facebook, they've got a link there, or my website. So as I said, these masks are going to vulnerable community members, and we've already had, a large number of donations of masks. And, these are some ways that we can help support community, in this really challenging time that we're going through. But if anyone needs to know the link, I can share that as well. Definitely.
Yeah, I think for sure. And it's so important to support community-led initiatives, especially in times like these where a lot of small businesses are struggling. And I think before I move on to Mujtaba to ask him about support for international students and support for people, I think it's really important to point out a comment that's been put in the webinar chat. I think it's just aimed at panelists, but I think it's so important to make, which is from Jenny Hernandez, which says, "It's imperative not to generalize. Australia's a great country and most people love and benefit from international students." So I think that's a really great point to emphasize that there is a lot of love there. And I think something that our old minister used to say quite a bit was that Victoria especially is generally very, very much so in favour of international students and multiculturalism. And the only second layer to that question comes with the depth of it. But I think it's so important to acknowledge that multiculturalism is quite well loved here. But as we continue with discussion, I might throw to, as I said, Mujtaba to talk about some more support mechanisms and support networks, and then I might open it up to the wider panel and maybe ask Tulsika or Zahara if you have any advice for people who are looking for support.
Thank you, Keshi. I think, people definitely need, especially people definitely need support from especially government support, especially people who have been disadvantaged, like asylum seekers and international students. A high number of people have been, it's been reported that a high number of people were asking, for a support fund from charities. And it's been reported in the, last month as well. I've read it to a news. And definitely that's something that, we all know that, not only this group of people, everyone needs support and, to get supported, not only financially, but also to get, mental support, psychological support as well. But this group of people, they are more vulnerable, they are more, at risk, and they need more support from government to be, supported and assisted in this way. Is it the only question? Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so valid. Does anyone else want to make comment on what suggestions for support that you have for international students during this time?
I'd just like to say, one other thing I'd like to say is that don't look at why other people are coping better than you during this pandemic. Don't stress about your peers' achievements during this period, but focus on yourself and make sure to take care of yourself. And this is indeed a period of uncertainty, so don't feel pressured. And also there is help available, so be gentle to yourself. But on a last note, I'd just like to say, as young people of today, it's really important for all of us to come together and to unite and to kind of like adapt together for a new future for tomorrow. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Definitely. And Zara, would you like to leave us with anything?
Yes, I would say keep updated with everything that's happening around you in your own communities, whether that be clubs doing events every night, funds from university, small businesses that are close by, and staying in touch with your friends, not leaving them unattended, even though everyone might be living in separate dormitories, for example, or in shared accommodation, or even with their family. Just stay in touch with them, see what's going on apart from their studies. Yeah, keep updated.
Awesome. So I think as much as I don't want to cut anybody off, I think this is all we have time for today in our Q&A chat. But thank you so much to all of the panelists for your enthusiasm, for all of the work that goes on behind the scenes, the VU events team and everything. It's so important we have these conversations, and I'll be dropping my contact details as the youth commissioner in the chat. So please feel free to get in contact with me. If you have anything to say, I'd love to hear from you. Happy to catch up for a coffee or a virtual coffee or anything like that. I think, especially during these times, it's so important that we're here for each other, and that we, while we can't meet face to face, we can still see each other, computer to computer, and support each other in that way. So thank you for that. And I'd like to throw to Vishwa to share some final reflections and close out our panel.
Thank you, Keshi, and thank you everyone for your brilliant inputs. Thank you so much for all the participants. Hope you are empowered and you have a lot to bundle up and take it at your home. Well, we are already home. Anyway, so please contact us on Cultural Diversity Office at culturaldiversity.vu at vu.edu.au if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you so much.
After this amazing panel in which we talked about a variety of things, now we would move on to our last segment, in which I would like to invite Temi Ola Digi. My apologies for not getting the proper pronunciation of the name, but Temi is a VU student, and she would be delivering 3 beautiful music pieces that she eloquently curated for this panel discussion and for all of you. So now let's have the virtual stage for Temi's performances.
Felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. When should I break or retreat and then return? Facing the fear that the truth I discovered. No telling how all this will work out, but I've come too far to go back now. I am looking for freedom. I'm looking for freedom. And to find it cost me everything I have. Well, I am looking for freedom. I'm looking for freedom. And to find it may take everything I have. I know all too well it don't come easy. The chains of the world, they seem to be moving tight. I try to walk around it, but stumbling so familiar. Trying to this doubt is so strong. There's gotta be a wind in my bones. I'm looking for freedom. I'm looking for freedom. And to find it may take everything I have. Yeah, I am looking for freedom. I'm looking for freedom. And to find it costs me everything I have. Oh, not giving up has always been hard. But if I do things the easy way, I won't get far. Life hasn't been very kind to me lately. But I suppose it's a push for moving on. In time, the sun's gonna shine on midnight sleep. Something tells me good things are coming, and I ain't gonna not believe. I'm looking for freedom. I'm looking for freedom. And to find it cost me everything I have. Well, I am looking for freedom. I'm looking for freedom. And to find it may take everything I have. We all bleed the same. We're more beautiful when we come together. We all bleed the same. So tell me why we're divided. Woke up today, another headline, another innocent life is taken in the name of hatred. So hard to take. And if they think that it's all good, then they're mistaken. Cause my heart is breaking. Are you left? Are you right? Pointing fingers, taking sides. When are we gonna realize we all bleed the same? We're more beautiful when we come together. We all bleed the same. So tell me why we're divided. If we're gonna fight, let's fight for each other. If we're gonna shout, let love be the guide. We all bleed the same. So tell me why we're divided. Tell me who are we to judge someone by the kind of clothes they're wearing or the color of their skin? Are you black? Are you white? Are we all the same inside? Father, open our eyes to see we all bleed the same. We're more beautiful when we come together. We all bleed the same. So tell me why we're divided. If we're We all bleed the same. We're more beautiful when we come together. We all bleed the same. So tell me why we're divided. If we're gonna fight, let's fight for each other. If we're gonna shout, let love be the cry. We all bleed the same. Let's stay united. Let's stay united. Let's stay united. This is for the busted heart. This is for the question marks. This is for the outcast soul, lost control, no one knows. Sing it for the can't go back. Sing it for the broken past. Sing it for the just found out. Life is now upside down. If you're looking for hope tonight, raise your hand. If you're feeling alone and don't understand, stand. If you're finding the fight of your life, then stand. We're gonna make it through this hand in hand. And if we fall, we will fall together. This is for the second chance. This is for the new romance. This is for the loved in vain, overcame. It's not too late. If you're looking for hope tonight, raise your hand. If you're feeling alone and don't understand, stand. If you're finding the fight of your life, then stand. We're gonna make it through this hand in hand. And if we fall, we will fall together. And when we rise, we will rise together. If you're feeling alone tonight and you fight the fight of your life, if you're looking for hope tonight, we're gonna make it happen. Yeah, I will be by your side. This love is in the air tonight. Come up and see the light. Just as long as we're together, say if we fall, we will fall together. And when we rise, we will rise together, all together. And if we fall, we will fall together. And when we rise together, all together. Together we are dangerous. Together with our differences. Together we are bolder, braver, stronger.